Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. So in today's video, I'm going to be creating a card background using this new embossing powder from Wow. This is the Celestial Harmony Duo, and you've got that beautiful violet aurora on the left and opal glow on the right. And they are both really sparkly. They've got iridescent powders in them as well. And they're really pretty in real life. It's difficult to show all of the shine on camera, but we'll give it a good go in today's video. I'm going to be using a stencil. This is from Rubber Dance. It's the Lattice stencil. And whenever you're using stencils with your embossing powders, it's always good practice to use an anti-static powder bag first of all on your cardstock, just so that there's no static from any grease or oils from your fingertips, but also in case there's anything on the stencil as well, the anti-static powder will help to protect the cardstock from that. I'm going to use my magnets just to hold it in place, and then I'm going to take my Wow Embossing Ink Pad, and I'm using a blending brush for this, and I'm just being very careful to make sure that I get really good coverage across all of the stencil design using the blending brush. I find with a blending brush it allows you to get into all the detail of a stencil, whereas a foam sponge dauber just doesn't give you the same effect when you've got a lot of detail on a stencil. And so I just have a blending brush that's dedicated to embossing ink only. So now you can see, as I've removed the stencil, the gorgeous pattern and outline of that stencil design. So we can go ahead now and add our embossing powder. So I'm just going to put a piece of copy paper on my desk, and then I'm going to add the embossing powder over the panel over that. That's just to collect any embossing powder so that we can add it back into the pot. Now, I know that some companies sell products such as plastic trays to capture the embossing powder. I would not recommend those with Wow embossing powders, because the powders and the jars that they come in are especially treated for anti-static. If you use a plastic tray or container, you're only going to add static back into the pot, and then that's going to undo all the hard work that Wow have done to make sure that you get a crisp emboss every time. So just something to bear in mind if you do wonder why I'm always using copy paper. I'm then going to go ahead and heat set this from underneath, and that's really important too, because the powder's packed with iridescent glitter and also different size granules of powder. You don't want to blow off any of that texture, so heat setting from underneath ensures that you get a lovely smooth melt emboss, but it also means that you're not going to blow off any of that powder as well. So you know when the powder's starting to melt, because you can see all the glitter starts twinkling at you and you start to see a slight colour change. But once it's all dry, I just went over the top just to make sure I'd not missed anywhere. And then look at that gorgeous panel. I really don't think the camera's doing it justice. There's so much texture and shine, and you've got a real iridescence when you hold it to the light. So I have missed a little bit in that bottom right hand corner, but we'll soon cover that up when we finish the card. So to finish off the card, I'm going to use this lovely flowers stamp set from Gina Designs. And I'm just going to pop it in my stamping platform just so that I make sure I get a really good stamped image first time. I am going to use my VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink, which, if you know anything about alcohol markers, it's not the best ink to use with them. Probably something more like a dye-based ink like Memento would be better, or a hybrid ink. But I find that once I've let it dry, it's absolutely fine. And I'm going to use my Ohuhu Honolulu alcohol markers. This is the 48 set from Ohuhu, and it's got a really good vibrant range of colours. I'm going to be using the following colours, so if you've got the same alcohol markers, you can pause this and just take a screen grab of the colours that I'm going to be using if you want to colour along and use the same ones. And I'm just going to speed up this part of the video. I'm going to be using the brush tip ends of the alcohol markers just so that I've got more control over all of these small areas on the stamp set, but you do have a chisel end to these alcohol markers as well. And I love the fact that there's a little grey band around the end that's got the brush marker, so that it's a lot easier to use, and also those little divots of plastic so that the pens don't roll away when you're working with them. I always like to just swatch out my colours just to check that they blend nicely together, and I actually end up only using 2 of the shades of pink, just a lighter and a darker colour, and I'm just adding some darker colour where I feel there'd be natural shading to the flower, as shown on the stamped image. So I'm just following the lines that are on the stamped image really. I'm not an alcohol colourist and I'm not very good at alcohol colouring, but I really love how easy these markers are to use, and I think the finished effect is really pretty. So I'm just going to do exactly the same process with the leaves. by just using 2 shades of colour, a lighter one and a darker one, and then just adding a little bit of a darker colour towards the base of the leaves. And then that is the image coloured in, and I think it looks gorgeous. I love how vibrant these pens are, and so now we're going to go ahead and die cut the image out using the coordinating die. I'm just going to use my Sizzix Big Shot machine to do that with the standard plate combination, and I'm just going to add a little bit of washi tape just to hold that in place. Of course, if you've got a magnetic platform or one of those magic mats, you might find it a little bit easier, but I don't mind using the washi tape. I didn't get on very well with my magic mats, so I much prefer just using the standard plates and some washi tape. So I'm just going to trim my panel down, and I'm going to trim it down to 5 inches by 3 3/4 inches, and that'll leave a nice border on the card. I'm going to add a very thin layer of black cardstock to the back of it so that there's a really thin border. That's probably only about 1/8 of an inch bigger than the actual card front, and I'm just going to use my magnets to hold it down while it dries. Once that's grabbed, we can go ahead and stick it to our card blank. So I've got a homemade A2 card blank that I've created using the Craft Stash Creative Craft Products smooth white cardstock. They sell it in a US letter size here in the UK, and I really love using that for my card bases, and it's my main white cardstock that I use because it's great for all different types of techniques. I'm going to pop that floral spray up on a little bit of foam tape just to give it some dimension, and you just want to be mindful that the edge of the flowers doesn't overhang the card so that when it stands up it's not going to be trapped underneath or get squished or make the card stand up funny. So just be mindful of where you place it. So I've made sure that bottom leaf is not overhanging the card base. For the sentiment, I'm going to use the sentiment from the stamp set that says Hello Lovely, which I've stamped and die cut, and I'm just going to add a few foam squares to the back of that and pop that slightly overhanging the flower as well. I'm then just going to add a few clear dewdrops to finish, and then that'll be the finished card for today. So thank you so much for joining me. I really hope that you've enjoyed this tutorial. I hope that you've enjoyed seeing the new embossing powders and also the Ohuhu alcohol markers as well. As always, all the products that I've used will be linked in the description box below. Some of those links are affiliate links where possible, so I really appreciate it when you choose to shop through those links. It really helps me out. As always, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you've enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to leave me a comment. I love reading them and replying to all of them. I do my best to reply to everybody as I get the time to do so. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Take care.